That took your breath away. We're going to talk to James. Senator, welcome. It's great to see you again. Can I ask you this question?
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, James. Can I ask you this question? First 2 days of the 45th Parliament. I know yesterday was a bit of a swearing in. It seems to me that there's a lot of jostling going on key issues like 18C, gay marriage, those sorts of things. How do you, and the ABCC, how do you see those issues playing out? Do you think the government can actually get them through the Senate where you sit watching what's going on? And participating,
well,
Peter,
first I should apologise to your viewers for being a little bit overdressed for your show. My excuse is that I'm on my way to the midwinter ball downstairs, straight from the Sky studio. So my apologies to all your viewers.
We thought you were a class act, mate. We just thought you were a class act. We expect it on this show.
Not every day, not every day. Look, it's a really good question. The question of how the Senate is going to play out over the next few years is an unknown, but I think the early signs are promising. I think the crossbench has indicated a lot of reasonableness, a lot of willingness to negotiate, and I'm hopeful that that will persist for the term. I think in some respects it could be a Senate that is easier for the government to manoeuvre through than the previous one. On the question of Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act, I understand and respect the Prime Minister's view and the government's view that this is not a first-order priority, but I think it's a priority that needs to be addressed within this term of Parliament. We certainly have to address critical, time-sensitive things like the CFA bill, which was introduced to the House today, like the ABCC, like the Registered Organisations Commission. But once we've started to deal with those, and particularly once we've started to make headway on the budget and on the deficit, then I think it's important that we turn to fundamental questions like freedom of speech, which go to the core of what it is to be a Liberal.
James, with the 18C, I don't know, Peter wants to ask about this as well. There's going to be a private member's bill introduced into the Senate. Just for our viewers, how will that play out? How could that possibly play out in terms of changing the law?
Well, what's happened so far, Peter, is that Senator Corey Bernardi, my colleague, has put forward a private senator's bill in the Senate and he's sought co-sponsors to support him in that effort. A total of 13 government backbenchers and 7 crossbenchers, so 20 senators have co-sponsored the bill, and that is a fair indication of the depth and breadth of feeling on this issue, particularly in the Liberal Party. Where it goes to from here is a bit up in the air. It's really up to the government of the day to decide the priorities of the Senate and the legislation that it deals with. But one avenue which has been suggested by a few senators, including Nick Xenophon, which I think is a very good idea, is that we have an inquiry into either this bill or into freedom of expression more generally that will allow us to ventilate and discuss these issues and hopefully come to some kind of common agreement and understanding and get something done.
It seems to me, James, that, well, I've been in a situation in the Howard years where you know you weren't going to get things through. And on some of the IR bills, my attitude was, well, if it gets knocked back, I'll just put it back up again. And you just keep on doing it. And in fact, in that particular case, it was started back in 1997, and we kept on putting it all the way through till 2004 when we finally got it through. And would Malcolm Turnbull be open to the idea that those interested in 18C can put it up, appreciating that the politics is not going to be with them, it'll be knocked back, but understanding that it's a continuing interest of a number of members, and let it just sit there with that fairly strong support that has already been gained, and it leaves it alive as an issue, even if it's the next term or even a term after that. How about that as an idea?
Peter, I think so far the Prime Minister's been very understanding and very tolerant of the passions of his backbench senators on this issue. He understands, like we do, that the Liberal Party grants certain freedoms to the members of its backbench and allows them to pursue issues that the government isn't currently pursuing. I hope over time that we can persuade him and the government that this is an issue that it should take up and it should be a government bill. And I'm very confident that the tide of history is on our side on this. And one of the reasons I'm really confident is the case before the courts right now that involves 3 students from the Queensland University of Technology is an absolute travesty, a total injustice. And I think when the result in that case is handed down, whichever way it goes, it will demonstrate how badly 18C has been misused and can be misused, and why reform is absolutely essential.
Well, when you get the chance, we'd like you to bring one of those young fellas up with you, and we'll put them on the show here, because I think people ought to hear that.
We are following
It's
that.
about time you looked after some of the
Oh,
Queenslanders.
no,
Yeah,
I've been following this case fairly quickly, fairly closely.
One other question, another question on the, look, the main issue, of course, is really the money, the budget, etc. Now, just from what you picked up in the last 24 hours, where do you think the 6.1 or the $6.6 billion, what's going to happen about that? Will Labor, do you think they are pretty well ready to hand over on that? I know they're carrying on about some of it, but where's that from your perspective?
I certainly hope so. It's not every day that an incoming new government, in one of its first bills, seeks to legislate the election promises of a defeated opposition. But that's what we're doing here. I would have expected that Bill Shorten would send a note of thanks to the Prime Minister for introducing his policies, and I can't imagine why they would be quibbling with this, why they'd be equivocating about whether they're going to support it. We have taken literally the savings measures from the document that they put forward at the election, we've put it into a bill, and we put it into the Parliament. And it would be an extraordinary thing if the Labor Party wouldn't support their own costings document once it found its way to Parliament. So I'm hopeful that they will see the sense on this, particularly because, as you say, we have some very serious challenges to deal with in a budget sense. A $37 billion deficit is no small thing, and this will go some of the way to fixing it, but clearly not all the way. There's going to need to be a lot more heavy lifting in this area.
When do you think that'll get up to the Senate, though, that bill, the omnibus bill? You know?
It could be as soon as the next sitting week, in 2 weeks' time. Hopefully it would be in and through before the end of the year, because, of course, if these measures aren't legislated, then the spending keeps on going. So the clock is ticking on this, and every day that we don't legislate this is a day that's more money is spent, more money is borrowed, and more debt is added to for the next generation to pay off, because this generation couldn't pay for what it was spending today.
James, so some of the other bills that the Prime Minister introduced today were the ones, industrial bills. There were two of them, one in relation to firefighters in Victoria and the ABCC. What chances do you think the ABCC bill has got in terms of your Senate colleagues? Do you think the government can get the numbers in the Senate?
To be honest, Peter, I just don't know, and we probably won't know until the bill gets to the Senate. I think, though, that there are very compelling arguments for this. It worked very well under the Howard government. There has been 2 royal commissions that have recommended this body or a body like it. I hope that those arguments are persuasive with the crossbenchers, and I know my colleague Michaela Cash is doing heroic work negotiating and talking to them, and the government has indicated that it is willing, within reasonable limits, to listen to those concerns that have been raised, to make minor amendments, as long as the core and the guts of the ABCC is preserved and it is allowed to effectively fulfil its role. There's no point legislating a toothless ABCC.
No.
That's not going to help anyone. That's not going to help anyone on a building site. We have to legislate a meaningful ABCC, and we will find out in the coming weeks whether we're able to do that.
James, you saw in the last Parliament, and I know you were there for a relatively short period of time, but you saw how the Senate functioned. You've only had a short period of time, I understand this, and maybe it's too early to judge, but do you sense a different feeling in amongst the new senators about cooperation with the government? Are they more likely to get more bills through this term than they did last term?
I do, Peter. Because I was a new senator who came in a casual vacancy before the election, I decided to participate in Senator School last week. So I had a really good opportunity to get to know some of my new crossbench colleagues, and they are reasonable people. They are genuine people. They have as much right to be in the Senate as I do. They went out and they generated support for their ideas and their platform, and people voted for them. Now, they might go about their politics in a different way to us. They certainly have different views on a number of issues, but they've indicated a real genuineness about how they're going to go about their time here in the Senate. They've got things that they want to achieve. I think they're here for the right reasons, and I think we'll be able to work with them, and I think the early signs are really positive in this sense.
We have time for one more.
Well, yes. How's the midwinter ball going. It's very good of you to
Well, I
you know,
can't-
break
I can't
yourself
say much
apart
about
from
it.
it, I must say.
Yeah, I walked through very briefly on my way here to the studio,
Yeah.
so I haven't even had a champagne yet, Peter, but I will go and have one in your honour.
Well, you can go and that's right, you can go and taste us
Yeah,
there,
good
James.
idea, yeah, well-
Mate, thanks for coming on the show, and you do look very spiffy. We're very impressed.
Oh, it's
good
very
idea.
kind, Peter.
We like having you on board.
Thanks,
very
James.
much.
All the
Good on
best.
you.
Good to have you.
Thank you.